the guys on Zoom, we're going to take questions from those in the room first of all. And then what I'll do is, if anyone else has got any additional ones, we can obviously come to you at the end as well. I will record the files as normal, so I can send them around, so you have got them on all the WhatsApp groups as well. Does anyone on the call, first of all, need recording permission?
I think there's one in the chat.
Yeah, right, no problem. Okay. Hi, it's right. Jeremy, would you like to start?
Hi, Heather.
Hi.
What a big moment for Lauren Filer and England debut in the Test debut too. Why have you gone for her?
Yeah, hugely exciting for her. We've gone for her because we think she's a real impact bowler. I guess she's a bit of an unknown, but she bowls wicket-taking deliveries, and for me, she's, if not the quickest, one of the quickest in the country, and she gets bounce, and she's got skills, can move the ball both ways, and ultimately we need a team that's going to take 20 wickets, and we feel like she gives us that little bit of an impact bowler. She can bang the ball in as well. There's not been many people queuing up to face her in the nets, but yeah, really excited for her to see how she goes.
And Danny White, 245 white ball games, but a first Test appearance, sounded like a sheet today.
Yeah, two very contrasting Test debuts, aren't they? She's really chuffed. I think probably at one point Danny probably felt like she was never going to get a Test cap, but we've picked her because we want her to play exactly how she does in the middle order in ODI cricket. She's one of the best players and the best attackers of spin in the world game for me, and she makes it very tricky to set fields to having faced or played against her, in a 2-day warm-up game. She makes it very tricky and scores in quite unusual areas, so that's exactly how we want her to play, how she does in white ball, have a little bit of a counter punch and use her experience there as well.
How confident are you this is a team to win this Test match?
Yeah, really confident. Obviously, we're going to have to play very well. It's a very experienced, very, very successful Australia team, and ultimately we're going to have to be at our best to try and do that. But the girls are so excited about the opportunity to do something a little bit special, and obviously delighted that it's a Red Bull game first. I think the last Ashes Test match we had 2 days preparation going into that Canberra Test, so we've had probably 4 or 5 weeks of really good Red Bull prep now with this Test match in mind. So yeah, we feel certainly ready and really clear on how we want to do things and the tempo of how we want to play.
Over 80,000 tickets sold for the series so far, and nearly 15,000 for this match. How pleasing is that for you?
Yeah, awesome. I think the fact that it's been marketed how it has and it's been put in prime time venues at the right times for people to come watch, and I think the fact that Eastby have done that and it's obviously attracted people to come is a great sign, and we're going to need that crowd behind us. You saw how the guys got the crowd at Edgbaston behind them, and what an atmosphere it was going there for one of the days. But I think obviously to beat this very good Australian side, we're going to need all the help we can get. So as much as we can maximise home advantage and get the crowd on side early, hopefully with how we want to play our cricket, yeah, we're going to try and maximise that if we can.
And the start of the men's Ashes has been epic. I mean, the two series are running in tandem. What kind of fireworks can we expect in the women's Ashes?
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining stuff last night, wasn't it? We hung around here for an hour or two watching the back end. Obviously, brilliant Test match, very entertaining to watch. But for us, we're obviously a different team and we want to play to our strengths as much as we can. But there are some parallels in terms of we want to play entertaining cricket. And I think when we do play Red Bull cricket as women's cricketers, we feel like we're fighting for the format a little bit sometimes. And I think we've talked about how actually it's really important that we do play cricket that people want to watch, because we want future generations to be able to play Test cricket, and it sometimes feels like if there is a slower period in women's Test matches, then the debate kind of starts about whether women should play the game, and ultimately as players we want to make it entertaining and want to make it fun for people to watch.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next question, Fiona.
Hi there. Can you just talk about how beneficial it's been to have 2 to 3 weeks prep this time around compared to 2 to 3 days that you mentioned last time?
Yeah, really important. I think I've seen a lot of progression actually in the group over the last 3 weeks, and there's always a really good vibe when we get a chance to focus on Red Bull cricket, because we don't play much of it. None of us have played it growing up, and there's that real growth mindset in the group to try and learn off each other, try and develop, and try and get ready for obviously what we've got to come. But yeah, it's been really good. Obviously the Duke's ball as well, getting used to that. It moves a lot more and for a lot longer in English conditions than the white ball does. So prepping that, and for me, like, it's getting your mentality right. I think that's so important. Like, Test cricket is a mental challenge. You have to do things for a lot longer and hold your nerve in certain situations, and obviously adapt to what's in front of you as the game changes and conditions change. So yeah, it's been very beneficial, and the group's actually really loved being able to have that time.
And can you talk a little bit about the impact that John's had since he's come in last autumn?
Yeah, he's had a brilliant impact. I've really enjoyed working with him. I think he's challenged me as a captain to keep improving and keep progressing, which I've really enjoyed as well. And it's just given us a lot of clarity. I think it's kind of the mindset we've tried to have in the past, but haven't quite been able to transfer it consistently as successfully as we want. But I think the messaging's been really clear, and myself and John are certainly on the same page about how we want the team to play. Now it's just about doing it in the big pressure moments.
And without giving too much away, can you lift a little bit about the kind of brand of cricket that you want to bring to the Australians in this test?
Yeah, well, I think we want to entertain. We want to play cricket that people want to watch. Obviously, playing a lot of white ball cricket over our careers, like, naturally, that's kind of what comes naturally to us. And I guess probably going to be closer to a white ball game than probably more Test cricket. And I think probably when I started out playing Test cricket as a youngster, I felt like I have to go super defensive. It's all about survival. And I've kind of learned as a batter that it's all about scoring runs. You have to have that mindset to be able to score runs in red ball cricket, and I certainly want all the girls to have that in the back of their minds, how they're going to take the game forward when they're out there with the ball or with the bat. And there might be times where we're going to have to soak up pressure a little bit, but ultimately, can we soak that up and then put that back on the opposition? That's exactly how I want us to play.
And just lastly from me, I appreciate you guys have had your own test to concentrate on. Have you exchanged any words with Ben at all, your male counterpart Ben? So have you given any words of advice ahead of tomorrow?
Not Ben, no, but I've spoken to Stuart about the conditions. He's obviously played a lot of cricket here, and this is my first ever game at Trent Bridge, unbelievably. So it's quite unknown. I got lost on the way to lunch earlier. I'm not used to not knowing my way around a cricket ground, but yeah, lots of really useful stuff on him, on how to bowl on this pitch, how the pitch changes over the course of, obviously, the cricket that he's played here, so that's been really useful. And I think we've had a lot more interactions with the guys, actually, with how the Ashes has been marketed, so that's been really nice, and the guys have been really supported, and that's yeah, really, really helpful for us as a group.
That's one,
Thanks.
Thanks, Fee. We'll go Bharat, then Valkyrie.
Thanks. As we spoke about it, how every time you play a test match, you feels like you're fighting for the format, but as a captain, where do you draw the line between, like I said, the brand that you want to play, make test cricket more entertaining, but also realizing that there are 4 points at stake, and you playing the test match ahead of the white ball stuff this time?
Yeah, I think what we've done really well as a group, I think, is try and not focus too much on winning, try and focus on how we want to do things, and try and work on the process of doing that. I think that's really important, particularly when you look at the context of 5 days. It can look, well, we've got 5 days out here. I think breaking it down is going to be really useful. So yeah, that's certainly important, and I just want the girls to play the game in front of them, trust their cricket intuition. I think we've got a lot of experience out there that's going to shape how we do things the next 5 days. So yeah, play the game in front of us and play it hour by hour, and hopefully we'll be in a very good position.
And the last one you played in Canberra, there were a few declarations, and even as the pace of the game picked up, and you try and create a result, and it almost happened. With the extra day, does that change anything at all, or it's the same, where both teams kind of play in a way where you try to make sure a result happens, or is that not on you?
Well, I think the last innings at Canberra was exactly how I want us to go about this test match. Like, it was ultimately a chase that we went out there to try and win and try and be really aggressive. And I actually think we've learned a hell of a lot from that test match. We were in a position where we should have won the game, and obviously it slipped away and ended in a draw. But I think actually the learnings from that test match, when the heat was on, and realising how quickly test matches can change with wickets here and there, I think was a really good reminder for those girls, and being really clear in those big moments and communicating really well is going to be crucial for us over the next week. But no, I don't think it changes too much. You obviously got a little bit more time, and yeah, hopefully there'll be a result. Because obviously there's been a hell of a lot of draws over the last however many years, and hopefully weather won't intervene and the match can come to a really good conclusion.
Have you had a chance to look
Yeah, I have. It's probably a little bit patchy than I expected, and probably the groundsman wanted it. Actually, we asked for a pitch with just good carry. I think the Canberra wicket was awesome for women's test match cricket. It had a bit of pace. The bowlers could get a bit out of it, but you could also score runs when the bowler missed. So we wanted a pretty similar wicket to that. But generally, it's a pretty good wicket to bat on here. So yeah, it looks good, and looking forward to getting out of there.
A lot of the England batters did make runs in those warm-up matches against the two Australian sides, albeit on different pitches. But how informative was that in terms of the touch that your key batters are in at the moment?
Yeah, it was really good. I think the tempo that we went at and the pace we scored at was brilliant without being overly risky and aggressive. I think that was awesome. And the fact that Tammy went on and scored a massive mummy 100, and then Emma Lamb did the same the week before is really good signs, because we talked about that as a batting group. We want to go on and make real match-defining innings, not just sort of getting 100. If you can get a real big one, that puts the team in a great position. So yeah, really happy with the group, and hopefully we can go out and replicate some over the next 5 days.
Scott?
At least we've talked a bit about the need for the right kind of pitches for women's test matches, and we've seen over the last 5-10 years they tend to be dominated rather than ball dominated. Do you think the Duke sport might change that somewhat and actually bring the balance back to where it would ideally be?
Yeah, I think the Duke's ball was a brilliant addition. We obviously played with it against South Africa last year. It just stays harder for longer. It moves for longer. I think Elise is right in terms of the pitch. You want nicks to carry, because sometimes we've played on slightly deader dollar pitches where actually it's really hard to score runs if you bowl straight, but also really hard to take wickets, and that's not really the pitches when there isn't as much pace in the women's game that is conducive to getting a result. So yeah, I think the Duke's ball is a really great addition. The bowlers have certainly enjoyed bowling with it, and you can get a little bit out of it for a lot longer. So yeah, I think probably the biggest challenge in women's test has been taking 20 wickets, and I think the Duke's can help that.
And just the Duke's ball in general, like I know the Kookaburras tend to be used over here with women's cricket for last year, but growing up, like have you or the bowlers had much experience with Duke's ball when you're playing men's cricket, boys cricket, or is it?
Good question. I'm trying to think what I would have used when I played men's cricket. It's probably like a dodgy Readers, which probably cost about £10, so probably not comparable at all. But so many of the youngsters growing up now just play with a white ball, so it is a bit of a new challenge. So I think it's just using the experience of players that have already played with red ball and a Duke ball, and obviously the coaches. There's a huge amount of experience in there, so yeah, just getting used to it and working out sort of how to use your angles as well when the ball is moving a little bit more as seamers.
Do you think that gives England more of a home ground advantage than what it did when the Kookaburra was used in that sense? Or?
Yeah, I hope so. I'll tell you at the end of the match.
Hi, just with this kind of the aggressive mindset, how much of it comes from this being the way you think cricket should be played versus how much you personally want to play it, and that's the funnest way for you guys to go out and enjoy the match?
I think it's just trying to play to your strengths as much as you can. You're trying to maximise the talents that you have in the group and trying to have a mindset of just taking the game on and trying to move it forward. I think that's really important. And like I talked about earlier, when I was playing red ball cricket and just felt like I had to go really defensive, that wasn't really conducive to scoring runs. And it isn't always just playing massive shots. It's just when the bowler misses, I'm going to put that ball away and put the pressure back on them that way. And yeah, I think just having a positive mindset in general and trying to move things forward and trying to be entertaining is a good way to go about it with this group.
With obviously, I'll be too simplistic to draw comparisons to men's, but they also had to change after a change leader who were obviously very experienced captain. Did one lead to the other, kind of seeing how another team was going about and change their mentality affect you at all, or was this a process that after that Canberra Test match down the line you say that this is how actually we want to play our games, and without basketball, whatever you want to call it, this would be the women's approach?
I think in test matches, the last probably 3 that we've played, I think we've been really clear how we want to do things. We want to try and set up to win. We want to try and put pressure back on the opposition, and obviously rain has intervened a little bit over the last few test matches, so I think it's kind of evolved as we've gone about it. And like I talked about that last innings at Canberra, we went out there to try and win the game and weren't too worried about losing, so it kind of has evolved, but I think John's just made it sort of really clear. And obviously we've had a few younger people come into the team, really exciting players, and you're just trying to maximise your strengths as a group.
Any other questions for Heather from the room?
Sorry.
Yeah.
We touched a little bit on the next generation and also how many tickets have been sold and the eyes on it. There's going to be a lot of young girls here watching it. How important is it to sort of inspire that next generation? How much thought have you given that as compared to just playing the game and winning?
It's one of our mantras as a group. We want to entertain and inspire, and I think, particularly in the women's game, I think we take it kind of quite personally that we want to promote the game in the right way, and we want to get people behind us and inspired, and ultimately we'll do that by how we play on the pitch. So yeah, it's kind of weaved in a little bit into what we do, but ultimately if we do our jobs really well on the pitch, that's going to look after ourselves. But yeah, it's super special. I think it's set up to be a really amazing Ashes series. It's probably going to be the most visible series outside of World Cups that we've ever had. So we're keen to try and maximise that. And I think women's sport is just in such an amazing place in the country at the moment, and we want to be a part of that. What the Lionesses did last summer, like, we absolutely loved watching it, and really want to be a part of that. Obviously, we know we're against a very good Australian team, but I think if we can do something, we've got the opportunity to do something very special, and part of that is kind of bringing the country with us on that journey.
Thank you. Any more from the room? I can see there's a hand up on here, so I'll move that to you.
Oh, that's all good.
Okay, so could we start with Kalyana, please, on the call?
Thank you. Hi, Heather. First of all the very best for the Ashes series. This is not the first time England will go into the Ashes series against Australia that has not been captained by Meg Lanning. 2017 was also the series. Do you think that changed the dynamics of the series, given how important she has been, not just as a batter, but as a leader for Australia? And just a word on how, on Meg Lanning, basically.
Yeah, obviously wish Meg the best, and hope she's all right. She's obviously a hugely talented cricketer. There's a huge amount of respect there for her as a leader, and kind of how she goes about things with the bat. There's no doubt she'll be a loss for Australia, but also they've got a hell of a lot of experience in their ranks. So they've got a lot of players that have played a lot of cricket. So yeah, I don't know how much it will affect them, to be honest, but for us, we're playing the team in front of us, and we're just trying to focus on being in the best position as a team ourselves.
Just one more for me. You played alongside Elise Perry and Megan Shute in the WPL, and John, of course, as coach at the UP with Alisa Healy. Do you think knowing those nitty-gritties in WPL in these conditions, ultimately very recently, do you think that dynamic will affect the entire Ashes dynamics with the battles that will go on for the series?
No, not too much. I think played a hell of a lot of cricket against a lot of the Australians, and playing Big Bash, a lot of us have played with and against them a huge amount and know them personally as individuals. But yeah, I really enjoyed playing with Megan and Elise in India. Got to know them pretty well, and how they go about things, and obviously you learn a little bit more about each other's games and how you do things off the pitch, but no, I don't think it will have too much of an effect.
All the very best for the series going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from those on the call? No, it looks like we're good. Well, thank you all very much for your time. I will send the files round as normal shortly, so you've got those, and we'll see you again over the next few days, I'm sure. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Recording stop.
Good turnout today.